Uh, Hello, good afternoon. My name is Juan Bautista Propato. I work for Football West, the beautiful Southwest. I'm based in Basildon, although look more sunny in New Zealand than here. I'm in charge of the Leeuwin region. Before I was in New Zealand for more than 10 years when I have the privilege to meet Andy, a little of Germany, and then of course Argentina. I also went to university. I'm a PE teacher. High performance in sports degree, so 7 years in uni, although I was working in football all the time. And I'm currently doing my A license. But today we have an amigo, Andy Hedge. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you, Juani. Yes, you're right. It is sunny here. It's beautiful.
Yeah, well, you are in a better place. I was talking to another friend, Guille, and he was saying Wellington, the weather looked horrible yesterday, but over there looked beautiful.
Yeah, I'm an hour's drive north of Wellington, and it's always nice up here. It's much better than Wellington.
It is beautiful. So tell me a little about yourself, Andy.
So if you didn't guess, my accent is British. I'm from a little town called Harrow, just outside London, northwest London. Grew up there with I suppose an average middle class upbringing for London. Kicked the ball about my whole life, from in the garden with my brothers and my sister, right the way through to the time I left England, which was in 2001. So I've been in New Zealand now nearly 20 years, which is quite a scary thought. But it's been an interesting journey. I've spent time in the States, in Australia, and obviously mostly in New Zealand last few years. But I used to play a little bit. Played in the non-leagues in England for a few years, as well as working for my dad. He was lucky enough to let me off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon some days to go on away travel games and stuff that we had to drive around England for. And then I moved to New Zealand, 2001. Actually, I played with a contact with a friend called James Bannatyne, who's the next all-white goalkeeper, who was playing for the Football Kings at the time, which was based in Auckland. Shows you how long ago it was. It was, I think it was the NSL, it was called back those days. And I caught up with him in Sydney. And he suggested that I come over here and to New Zealand and have a game for Miramar Rangers and see if it could get me some coaching work. And yeah, I'm still here. I've been back about 5 times, I think, to England. So yeah, why wouldn't I? Just the weather here is stunning. So
yeah, although the summer in England been better and better, isn't it? It's still short.
Yeah, we can get some good ones. It can get really hot, often hotter than it can here in New Zealand. But when it's bad, it's pretty bad, and it's wet and miserable and windy, and not a great place to be on those days. But no, you do miss the place. You certainly miss the football. I've still got family there, obviously, as well, so I miss them sometimes. And but yeah, it's the football really that you miss, that cultural. Every day reading the papers, there's 12 pages of newspapers to read through of football and stuff, and you obviously don't get that here because it's not the culture. But I still try and keep in touch with as much as I can back home, whether it's my local team or my favoured team QPR that probably nobody else has ever heard of. So
now we know about QPR. We know how a few men down there that support QPR. So then your coaching was starting in USA, isn't it?
Yeah, so it was 1995, well actually 94, so the World Cup had just happened in the States. And I had a teammate who I was playing with, a guy called Keith Tong, who would miss sort of the first 4 or 5 weeks of pre-season. And he was a school teacher at the time, he was a PE teacher. And he'd come back late from into pre-season in around August. And he'd have a lovely tan and all these stories of coaching in America. And I was fairly young, and I said to him, well, what are you up to then? And he said, I do some coaching over there. And I said, oh, that sounds quite cool. He said, oh, you'd love it. He said, it'd be great. So he put me in touch with the organisation. And at the time, the organisation were just about to have a partnership deal with Major League Soccer, which was obviously the pro league that was just starting there as part of the regulations for them to hold the World Cup. They had to start a professional league the following year. So yeah, I got involved with those guys, had interviews and stuff, and then I spent the next sort of 4 or 5 summers, probably 5 or 6 actually, going backwards and forwards from the States. So you'd spend 6, 8, 10 weeks over in the States doing summer camps, working with children anywhere from sort of 5 to 16 in a town. So you might move, into say Perth, and you do a couple of centres around Perth, and then next week you'd be up in Darwin or all over the place. So yeah, so I've seen a lot of the States. I've been from East Coast, from Connecticut, New Jersey, into the Midwest, Illinois, around Chicago, Indianapolis, Michigan. I went right up to the top of Michigan, to a place called Sheboygan, which is incredible. And then did a few weeks down in Texas, which was amazing, and spent quite a number of weeks and months in California, and I even did 6 months in Hawaii,
Wow.
which was incredible. So yeah, that was the start of my love for coaching, and it really taught me how to coach, because you're on summer camps and you've got little kids, boys and girls, 5 and 6, that you've got to keep entertained, and yeah, it was tough. It's 100 degrees and you've got 3 hours with them, so you better be good at your job.
Yeah, that's a really good point about how many times coaches ask me, oh, how do you do this and whatever, and they think because I'm Argentinian or you're English and also about football, it's like, oh yeah, one Argentinian football. Here you go, you can be the next football development officer or whatever. No, I did this. And exactly what you say, you have to put the hours into your profession to become better and better and better. If you don't do it, you are not going to learn. Like you say, you have their kids, and the challenge I gave is how I keep them entertainment, and then other kids are going to come back tomorrow. I'm doing a good job. If they are not coming back, then I'm not going to come back next year or whatever. So it was, thinking on your brain is like, I need to keep them engaged. I need to keep them motivated.
Yeah. And even within a session, I still remember my first session. I was doing a coach education course here, about a couple of months back, just before the lockdown. And I actually started to recall this session, and it was July 10th, 1995, and it was a Monday morning, and I was in Fort Worth, Texas. So it's Fort Worth is like Cowboy Central. Everyone walks around with Stetson hats and check shirts and jeans and cowboy boots and things like that. And we were doing a camp, and because I was a newbie, I was given a group of 5 and 6-year-olds, and I had them for 3 hours. And I'd never coached before, but I'd had some training prior to going out to the States. And all these little kids and all the mums and dads on the side, they're all just staring up at me. But as soon as you open your mouth, obviously they know you're English, and they sort of get a connection that way. But I knew then that I'd had to work quite hard to keep them entertained. And we were trained okay, looking back now, I was probably rubbish, but I was trained then to look out for trouble. So if you could see kids that were starting to sort of poke each other or just get bored, or then that was the time to change the game you were doing, or the activity, or make it easier or harder or something like that. Because you talked about the retention part, so getting them back tomorrow or next week or next season. I was worried about them walking off in the session. Where's he going? Or where's she going? Because they'd be bored. And kids at that age group are great, because they're so honest. If they don't enjoy something, they'll either tell you or they'll just leave. So it was a real intense learning, actually on the job doing it, and trying to pay attention to, okay, is this game working? What do I need to do to make it more fun, and things like that. But yeah, great memories from learning how to do that.
Yeah, no, I remember one as well. In Argentina, we used to have a kid, and he used to go and he was shooting like this. And then my coordinator was like, "What, no, whatever." And then he went and talked to him, and they were like, and then he's like, "Don't worry, just keep him entertained."
Yeah, and it's I call it here. You're putting the clown outfit on. You put the little red nose on and pretend you got a wig, and that's what you have to do. And particularly for those younger age groups, I think it's one of the hardest jobs in coaching, is to actually keep kids of that age group entertained, because that's what you become, and you do have to work quite hard at it and be enthusiastic. And I remember coming home from those sessions of a day, and in the States, sometimes you do like a session in the morning, which was 3 hours, say 9 to 12, and then maybe a session in the afternoon, sort of 2 till 5 or 5 till 8 if it was really hot. And you'd get home and you'd be absolutely wasted because you've spent all your energy. You know, you're constantly talking and moving and running around and playing with the kids, having fun, and you just get back and you're absolutely just gone totally, if physically, emotionally, mentally. And it's a special skill, and I think it doesn't get enough recognition, I don't think, with mums and dads especially, because they're often the coaches that get left with those sorts of age groups. But some of them are amazing. I mean, my wife is she's never kicked a ball in her life, and quite frankly probably hates the game because she's seen me play. But she is one of the best junior coaches I've ever seen, because she keeps kids entertained. She's not a teacher, she's not a school teacher or anything like that, but she understands what kids need, and she knows that, okay, if I give her a game to play like Runaway Trucks or Red Robin or whatever it might be, she can turn that game into life, and so they're all crawling around making animal noises, and she'll be really good at that. So it really proved to me over my career here in New Zealand as a coach and a coach educator that anybody can coach. It's just they need to be passionate about it and enthusiastic and work hard. And yeah, it's a shame now my boys are too ugly and too grown up for her to sort of make animal noises with them, because they'll just shut up.
They're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then your coaching career went to the next step, moving to New Zealand and play a coach at Myanmar, isn't it?
Yeah, so I did my badges whilst I was in England. So I go to the States in the summer, then I was playing non-league football in England over the sort of the autumn, winter, spring in England, and I did my coaching badges there. So I did my UEFA B license, because after that first summer that I went, I was basically made my mind up. That's what I wanted to do for a living, or try to, and so I must get myself educated. So I did my B license in '95, and then what did I do? Some of those summer camps, I coached some older players as well, because I was sort of still a bit of a player. They would say, oh yeah, you take the older group. So I learned how to coach some of the older players in a bit more sort of tactical stuff, which was good. It was exciting. And then when I got the call around coming out to New Zealand, I went out and played for Miramar Rangers. And as part of the deal, they got me a job coaching. So I was doing some coaching in schools during the day, and then I'd play for Miramar, train in the evenings, and then we play National League on the weekends. And then one year, it was 2004, I was actually asked to coach the team as player coach, as head coach. But because of the relationship with Capital Football, which is the federation that runs all football in that region of Wellington, they wanted me to remain impartial so that I wasn't poaching players from other clubs and things like that, which is fine. So I still played for Miramar, but I was kind of assistant coach under Davey Farrington. So I learned then about dealing with men's football, coaching men's football and winning, and actually changing your whole psychology and your whole philosophy of coaching to, okay, well, we performed this well or this badly last weekend. This weekend we've got Napier City Rovers coming up, so we need to do A, B and C. So by day I was a clown coaching kids, and by night I was Mr. Serious coaching a team in the National League that needed to win things. So it was it really helped me expand my knowledge of coaching and become quite a chameleon of being a coach, being able to change my personality from coaching 5 and 6 year olds in a school classroom to 26, 27-year-olds in a men's senior team.
Do you think at that time, with not much experience coaching at that level, when you were a Miramar, or although you were assistant coach, you have 1 or 2 strengths that you identify yourself at that time, or you think you were just helping and you just see, okay, we need to win today and we focus on this, and that was more your point of view about that, or was a overall view about you coaching and how you are helping the head coach?
Yeah, I think looking back, my strengths probably were my communication. I've always been quite a good communicator with anybody, so I could, if I was forced to have lunch with a High Court judge, I could have lunch with a judge, and equally, if I had to have a lunch with somebody that was digging roads or things like that, I can have a chat with those guys. So my ability to hold a conversation at different levels with people, I think has always been fairly good. And I think I owe that to my mum and dad probably, because they were quite social people when we were growing up. And I worked for my dad, so I am very, my personality is very much shaped by his influence and the values and morals that he had and showed. And he would always be a chameleon of how he talked to people. So he ran an advertising agency, and he would sometimes deal with the most horrendous clients that were really disrespectful to him, and would talk down to him and treat him really badly. But he would still hold himself up and be able to deal with that, and then also deal with all the suppliers, at the other end of the scale. So I definitely learned that communication skill through him. So I think that's really helped me with my coaching right the way through. But then also having a decent playing career, I think on the tactical side really helped me with the men, because it's okay when you're a player and you're bossing things around on the pitch, and I was quite a vocal player, that I would do that anyway. But then when it came to coaching and training, you've got more time to actually say, well, the reason I shouted at you on Saturday to do this was because of X, Y, and Z. So the tactical understanding would come out as well. So I think those two things coupled helped me succeed, I think, as a bit of a coach in that area.
Yeah, it's almost like the example about your father is about the noise. So it's a lot of noise with those kind of people. What is the problem, or what I'm going to find the solution? So you focus on that, and this is a solution. If you are lower level, it's still maybe it's a nicer person, so maybe it's easier to deal with that problem. But I guess your dad or yourself, or when you have those kind of personality, you focus about, okay, the problem is the noise away. We focus on the solution.
I think age helps with that as well in terms of making decisions. So you can, because of age brings experience, and you've experienced lots of things, and you'll remember consciously sometimes and also subconsciously over the years that this happened or that happened, so I don't need to worry about that because that's going to be the answer. I don't need to worry about this. And I think you do become a better decision maker as you get older based on a lot of experiences that you have, which is why it's so important as a coach to be, I don't mean you have to be experienced at every level, but I certainly think it helps if you have coached children, or if you have coached men, women, and you spread yourself across the game, because it does give you a bigger breadth of knowledge and experience to be able to fall back on, in your later career, where this happened. Okay, well, last time when I did X, Y turned out to be the wrong answer, so this time I might do that. And I think a lot of that has helped me make better decisions, and often quicker decisions. I've always been, my wife still hits me that I'm not, but a quick, because I'm scared. I'm kind of scared of making the wrong decision sometimes. But again, with age and maturity, I just make decisions now and trust my gut a little bit more than I used to, where I think about stuff and what happens if I do that or this or this, and you sort of make a bit more of a longer time to think about it, rather than now I'm probably making decisions a little bit more ruthlessly, I guess.
Well, I guess, if we look at the top coaches, many times and you have to make a decision like this, or they change player, the way they behave, Guardiola, Mourinho, Klopp, and sometimes on the second half, they just say to one or two players, like a player task, I want you, when this happen, you create this problem, and you run that diagonally, and the other player as well, and then the formation change, the behavior change, and you're creating a problem to the opposition. So if the opposition player or the coach doesn't find that solution, you're going to create a big problem. And then many times, tactically, with the same players, they win the games, or sometimes they bring someone from the bench that they have really good quality on the bench as well. And that player changed again when the coach talked before and said, I want you to do this. When this happens, talk to the guy over there, we do this, and then it's almost a reshape in time like that, quick decisions. Players sometimes they get upset, and I know in Argentina.
Well, Mourinho, I think it was Champions League. I can't remember if it was this year or just before Christmas. I think Champions League, he made a decision to take Eric Dyer off before half time. And everybody slaughtered him for it because, you don't take players off before half time, but it was a tactical change. There's an article on there somewhere, I can't remember who wrote it. And it was an interview with Mourinho and why did you do it and all that. And he said, because they were 2-0 down very quickly in the game. And he saw that there was something wrong tactically. So bang. And the vast, 99.9% of coaches would wait until half time to then change it, but you could have been 4-0 down by then. So he changed it on, I think it was like the 27th minute or something like that. And there's not, I can't say hand on heart that I would do the same thing because you just don't know. But I've made changes at half time before, which, often coaches won't do. They might say, that was terrible this half because of X, Y, and Z. You've got 10 minutes to sort it out, and then they make a change. But yeah, making a change in the first half, Mourinho says, I needed to do it, and again, his experiences and his years of coaching would have told him that that's the right decision. Now, we will never, ever know if that was the right decision or not. But at the time, I'll have to dig that out because that's going to annoy me if I can't remember what the score was. But I think they may have lost narrowly, but, come back into the game, something like that. I can't remember. But yeah, it was an interesting thing around his decisions to do that and what it's based on.
Yeah, and many times it's not like you say, your gut feeling that, this is a decision, I need to do this, or I need to talk to this player. And everything, sometimes you can get it wrong, isn't it? But the intention is to get it right.
Yeah, well, he would have, if he's planned his tactical, and obviously he's one of the best geniuses that's ever been in the game of football in terms of the tactics of the game and the psychology. That he might have done all his planning, all his staff have done the planning to play against, let's say it's Bayern Munich, and they're playing 4-3-3, and all of a sudden they come out as a 3-4-3. So, hang on, they're doing something we weren't expecting, and now they're 2-0 up. I've got to change it. So he changed it. So it's there's a famous Mike Tyson quote, isn't there? Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
That's true, yeah. So, and then from Miramar, then you were in under 20s, New Zealand football, Wellington Phoenix, National League.
Yeah, so that came a little bit later. So Miramar, the National League in New Zealand, I stopped playing. Actually, I went into Team Wellington. So there's a new National League here in New Zealand that changed to a franchise model. So Team Wellington sort of took over from Miramar. So I was assistant coach, sort of formally for the 3 years of that franchise for those first 3 years, and a player, but I only played for 2. I was getting far too slow. And then, so from those experiences from Miramar, went into coaching the Team Wellington side under Mick Waite, who's the All Whites coach. So I did that for 3 years, and then concentrated more on the youth players around that time, sort of the mid 2000s up until 2012, 13, 12. So I managed to get, I was incredibly honoured and surprised by an offer to coach or be assistant coach for the New Zealand under 20s men's team in 2011, so the 2011 World Cup. I'd initially turned it down, but I was crazy. I don't even know why I did at the time. I was too busy with the day job, I think, at Capital Football. Didn't think I could fit it in, but I'm glad I did because it was an incredible experience. So we were appointed in 2010, went through qualifying in Oceania. Thankfully, Australia aren't involved in those anymore, so that makes it a little bit easier for us to get through. And we got through to the World Cup in Colombia, which was a dream because it was, South American football. It's, as you know, it is a religion over there, and we were turning up, little old New Zealand, turning up to play in a stadium. We were based in Santiago de Cali, which is in the north of Colombia, and it was just football crazy. And we arrived, you know, FIFA regulations, so you have to be there 2 hours before kickoff. Well, we arrived 2 hours before kickoff, and in a 35,000 seater stadium, there were probably 20,000 people already there 2 hours before kickoff. So they were, you know, they're there singing and chanting, and it's a family day out, and it was incredible. And we had both, or all three games we had at that stadium, 35,000 sellouts for watching little old New Zealand play, which was great for our kids, and obviously a great experience as a coach to be there and trying to get messages out. That the stadium had a running track around it, and the dugouts were set back, and Chris Milicic, who's the head coach, was out right next to the pitch, and he's screaming and barking, and he's got a loud voice, and the players couldn't hear him because of the noise in the stadium, and trying to get messages from the bench to Chris was impossible. So I kept running out, and then I got told off by the fourth official because you're only allowed one person in the technical area. And every time I got up to run out, he would be there stopping me, and we were going, well, I can't get a message to him. So I nearly got sent off because I kept running out. But we managed to get that one sorted in a meeting afterwards because of the noise. But yeah, our players, you know, our kids had no idea, you know, coming from Upper Hutt, where they're playing in front of 20 people, you know, to 35,000 was quite an experience for them, and a real eye opener. And yeah, we did really well for a team that only had, I think at the time, 2 fully fledged professionals, which was Stefan Marinovic, who was in Germany, who's now obviously the Phoenix goalkeeper, and Marco Rojas, who was at the Phoenix as well, but now he's obviously with Victory. So they were the only two pros we had, and everybody else was a social player, you know, non-league sort of, you know, amateur player either in New Zealand or in the States at university. So it was a very basic team that we had, and managed to get a couple of good results. We drew against Cameroon, who I think were African champions at the time, and a draw against Uruguay, which was a great result. And then we lost narrowly. I mean, we were battered in the game; they absolutely slaughtered us, but we managed to keep the ball out of the net. And we only lost 1-0 to Portugal, who won it in the end. So yeah, it was great experience that year. So we got invited back to do it again the following year, 2013, or the following cycle, 2013, which was in Turkey. Which wasn't as well supported, which was a bit of a surprise to us, obviously being a European country and a big country. It was, yeah, a bit, there's only sort of a couple of thousand of people watching. But we had a better squad with that group, but we didn't gel as much because of our preparation. New Zealand football, again, didn't have the money really to put into decent preparation in terms of time together at camps and tours and things like that. So we couldn't build the same culture that we had done with the first squad. And we lost all 3 games and were well beaten. We lost 2-1 to Croatia in our last game, which was a bit better. So we had improved right the way through the tournament, but probably not as enough as where we felt we could have got with that group. So yeah, that was a great experience. And that's.
But you were in a tough group again, isn't it? You were with Uruguay, Croatia.
Yeah, Uruguay and Uzbekistan. Yeah, so big footballing nations, and all professional players. You know, those guys at under 20 level. It's often, you know, when you look at the World Cups, the Youth World Cups, the under-17s, you've probably got a better chance of getting a good result in those tournaments because everyone you're playing against is still a schoolboy and girl. So the girls are the same. I mean, our girls last year did an incredible job coming third. Yeah. But you're kind of playing against players that are similar because they're at school. You know, they're not professional athletes yet. When you go up against under-20s, you're playing against fully fledged professional players, and have been professionals for maybe 3 years, 4 years. Yeah. So, and our kids mostly are not. You know, we've had, I think last year's under 20s, there might have been six or 7 which were professionals. So that's getting there, but it's improving, and which is obviously what are the long-term things that we're trying to do in New Zealand, is to produce more professional players at a younger age group, because we can't provide that environment here in New Zealand enough. You know, we've got the Phoenix, obviously, although the academy's just been put on hiatus because of the COVID and money and all those things. So it's yeah, it's a real challenge for us, but we're starting there. I mean, I was lucky enough to spend 3 years at the Phoenix as head of their youth. So I was in charge of all the academy and also the reserve team coach. And And so bringing players like Sarpreet Singh through, Libby Kakache, Ben Wayne, and then before that, even Rufer, Michael Redenton, Michael, that's his dad, Matt Redenton, that was at the Phoenix and also Newcastle Jets. They were part of our initial reserve team setup. So it's been a really good pathway for New Zealand players, and I hope that they don't last too long, sort of out of the game in that sense, because it's an important part. And I think if you're looking back across those under-20s campaigns, if we'd have had the vast majority of those two groups of players involved in sort of full-time football for a year or two, then we could have done something a little bit special. But as has been proved last year with our under-20s getting to the last 16 and narrowly losing to Colombia, funny enough, in the penalty shootout. Yeah, so that was a shame. But it's getting there. We're starting to produce or develop some better players, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you look in world-class development, Germany, 98, they were the oldest team with the Panzer, Wehrhoff, Klinsmann, and then they were beaten by Croatia 3-0. Was the first time over many World Cups the Germans were just outrun by the Croatians with Zucker, a great team. And then they changed the way that DFB set up the whole youth system. And unfortunately, because Argentina, 2014, they won the World Cup, and 2010 semi-final, 2006 semi-final, 2002 final. So you could see how, but you need 20 years, 15, 20 years of consistency, talking about coaching and stuff as well. So 2006, Klinsmann was a coach. Yogi Löw was assistant coach. Bierhoff was a technical group. Then 2010, Löw was a head coach. Bierhoff technical team. Klinsmann went to USA. 2014 they won it. 2018, so it was a consistency not only on the youth program, also on the national teams from under 17, 20, and the national Mannschaft, where you have coaches, they know the players, they know the system, they know the clubs, for consistency 15, 20 years, working on technical assistant. Then when they come in, they've been already, you've been already 2006 World Cup, 10, 14, they won it, 18, and they have the new one is like a system where you keep going. And even looking at Argentina, unfortunately, since 2014, we have 4 coaches. Every year, a new coach. Someone come in, try to do something new. And although you have probably gone forward best team or one of the best teams in the world, then at the last World Cup, although we did all right, but if we were in any other group, like for example, Australia with France, Denmark, and Peru, Argentina, no way get through that group, no way. We don't go to the round of 16. So even at that level, that consistency through the years, but not 1 year, not 5 years, 15, 20 years, the same with Spain.
And also, I think for Germany in particular, their coach education, I finished reading Mensch. Have you seen that book?
Yes.
It's called Mensch Beyond the Cones. Jonathan Harding, I think, is the author. And it explains the German system and the German sort of coach education system and how difficult it is. It's called it's a football teacher. I've forgotten the German word for it.
Fußballlehrer.
Yeah, Lehrer. And to get that qualification, it takes a year. And I think most of that time they're sort of in camp. So you go off to a football university to it's not like a 3-week coaching course or whatever it is. You're actually studying to be a football teacher. And the amount of, compared to all the other European countries, the amount of coaches, qualified coaches in Germany, far superior to England and Spain and France and all the big nations, Italy, because you can just see it in their, the influence of the young German coaches coming out. So they're all over Europe now, especially in the Premier League and in the Championship. There's lots of good German coaches coming out, and obviously Jurgen Klopp gets the plaudits because he's up there at the top of the game. But people like David Wagner, who did an incredible job with Huddersfield. And you know, just these teams are, you know, full of real. No, I don't mean average players in that sense, but compared to, you know, the Man Cities and Liverpool players, they're miles and miles and miles above. And yet, who's the guy at Norwich?
Yeah, the one with
yeah, another German. Mine's gone blank. But really basic players, but they're competing week in, week out against these top players and teams. And a lot of it is because of the coaching that they're receiving. And obviously a lot of that is because of the education those coaches have received. And I think, you know, for, you know, decades now, Germany has really taken coach education seriously. And unfortunately, especially in this part of the world, again, cultural influences have a huge part to play in that. But coaching here isn't seen as that important. Yes, it's important and it's got a place and all the rest of it. But it's just, I don't think it's seen as you know, really important as a vital part of the cog in not just helping players develop, but helps the whole game develop. I mean, I'm biased, obviously. I'm a coach and coach educator, as you are, but I'd love to see federations around this part of the world actually investing properly in coach development rather than just putting people in jobs that might run a course here and there. They've got, you know, and in New Zealand here, unfortunately, we have people running courses that don't have any coaching qualifications as such, like an A license, or even worse than that, because qualifications are one thing, people running courses that don't have any experience. So, you know, if I'm an experienced coach and a coach educator, and I've coached teams at 5-year-old, or I've coached men's teams and women's teams, and this, you know, I can go and talk to anybody. But if I've never coached those teams, how can you impart some knowledge onto me to help me with my team of 7-year-old girls? Because I'm dealing with these issues, and if you don't know what those issues are as an educator, how can you help me? So I think we've got to, you know, the national bodies really have to invest a lot more money in getting their systems right. And Germany is a prime example of how successful they can be. And as I say, there is cultural benefits on that side because football's their national game, and, you know, all those sorts of things. But it hasn't stopped them putting in place the right mechanisms to help succeed.
Yeah, I mean, from my personal experience doing the C license in Germany, and I did courses here in New Zealand, Argentina, what I was surprised was that the course was more focused about technique, and we were watching, for example, one-on-one defending or 2v2 defending, and was all the writing notes of what they were doing right, what they were doing wrong, what they could do better, and having conversation, all about technique. Not the way you were coaching, all about technique, one-on-one, 2v2, small side game, the positional stuff for the player was all about that technique from the players. What can we help? How we can help for those players to be better at one-on-one, defending, attacking, transition, defending, and was kind of like a different spin about them. Okay, wow, you know, because many times this part of the world more about the teaching process, whatever. They were spending time on that, but was a lot on the technical stuff. Being with the tactical.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I think here, and obviously I can only speak for New Zealand's courses because I've been involved, you know, for 20 years running and delivering the courses, and for the last probably 10 years writing some of the courses as well. There was a definite shift, probably around 2008, 2009, 10, that sort of time, to the how of coaching. So questioning approach, player-centered coaching, and it's great. Like I firmly, you know, wholeheartedly believe in it. It's a much better way than just instructing and in my opinion, task-based coaching. So just, can you do this? I've never seen a player say no. Can you get on the ball and do this? Yes. Like, okay. So, but I think it's particularly around youth coaching. And so this country in the last 10 years, I think coaching went really well because of the fact that they were coaching better. They were actually coaching people rather than coaching football. But what we have missed is that football knowledge. And because of the culture here, There's no real analysis on TV. So the Phoenix game will play, and as soon as the final whistle goes, they'll cut to somebody and say, right, that's the end of the game. They might interview a player. What did you think of that, Juan? Oh, yeah, it was really good. The boys done good. All the best. Gone, finished, done. Whereas in Europe and in Germany, they will analyse it and they'll look at techniques and tactics. And he made this run to take the back. And all our kids miss all of that information here. And one of my old mentors here, who's been in this part of the world for donkey's years, he says you cannot neglect, particularly in a young football nation, which is what New Zealand and Australia is, you cannot neglect the what of football. So you have to have the how. So how are we teaching? So is it questioning? Is it demonstrating? Is it tasks? Is it instructions? Is it a constraints-led approach where you're just putting on some games with some point systems around it? You have to have that and give them the knowledge of that, but you've also got to give them the what. So why should an attacker drive inside with the ball? And when should he do that? And how should he do that? And how should the fullback support him? Should he overlap? Should he underlap? When should he? How does he? So all those technical, tactical details need to be included. And I think somewhere along the line, we've gone from being, when I certainly arrived in New Zealand in the early 2000s, it was all down the X's and O's. So here's how to kick a ball, and here's a 4-4-2 against a 4-3-3. And then in 2010, say, we went right to the other side and we left all the techniques and tactics out of the game. That's not important. How do you coach this player? And I think the balance is in the middle somewhere, because, you know, we've got to know both. And I think you'll get, as I mentioned right at the start, in terms of my strengths from the tactical point of the game really came from me playing the game at a decent level. So I've seen, you know, how good strikers. I mean, I played against Shane Smeltz here when I first arrived playing for Miramar. He was playing for Napier City Rovers as a 19-year-old.
Ah.
And I remember I'd just come out of the conference in England, which is now the National League. And I was saying to the coaches of Napier, he's as good as some of the players playing in England at that level, and he's only 19. His movements were good. He held the ball up. He was strong, and he was, you know, he was a kid. And I think that, you know, that knowledge from my point of view came through playing the game. And once I started to get educated as a coach, I could then drill back into that knowledge to go, oh, well, why would I do that? And why would I? So now when I'm watching football games, I'll often wind things back and see patterns very quickly. But if you don't have that playing knowledge, you've still got to analyze the game and work out, well, why did he pass there? Why did he run there? Why did he do that? And try and work that out, because only then can you really, you know, help the players if they need that help. Because if they want help as to solving a particular problem in front of them, and you don't know the answer, it's going to take them a hell of a long time to find out the answer, and maybe they'll never get that answer. So we've got to invest more time into the how and the what, rather than just specializing in one or the other.
And if you give them the answer and it's wrong, your credibility.
Yeah, it's your fault. I remember playing for Yedding, and this would have been late 90s, 97, 98, something like that. And we were a 4-4-2 team, so we played 4-4-2. And for some reason, the manager wanted to change to 4-3-3. I don't know why. He didn't give us any explanation. He just said, right, you know, you turned up at 2 o'clock for a 3 o'clock kickoff. We're playing 4-3-3 today. Here's the team. Bum, 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 bum. And he gave us out the shirt numbers, and out we went. And as we're going out to warm up, you can hear some of the senior players going, oh, what are we doing this for? And we were, I think, 3-0 down at half time, and we're playing at home, 3-0 down at half time. And there was a big row in the changing room. And the captain, in the end, stood up and pointed his finger at the coach and said, it's your fault because you told us to play 4-3-3 and we don't know what we're doing. So it was a blame culture. So he just blamed, you know, rather than trying to convince us that this is where we need to go and this is why, and this is giving us some rationale. He just told us to do it, and we blamed him for it. And so we went back to 4-4-2, and I think we lost 3-1 in the end. But, you know, it wasn't. And he actually said systems don't win or lose games, players do. And looking back on that comment, he's right, but at the time he tried to implement it the wrong way. And I think, yeah, when you are telling people to do stuff like that, you do, or you can create a blame culture.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of what we were talking about, the difference on the license and the way you coach. So in a way, if you want to change the system, that I agree, a system don't win the games. And also I think the problem sometimes with the system, people get, oh no, because you guys say you have to play 4-3-3, like, well, not really. And also today you look, Juventus and different teams, especially with the Catenaccio, with Italians, sometimes they ended up with playing a 3-5-2 or a 3-1 and a 3 and then 1 and then 2 or something like that. But they do have a system where the players know what's happened when this happened, what do we do, how do we see, can the fullbacks go up? Yeah, they go up. Are we defending deep in our own box, or we go a 5-3-2, or we go a 4-4-1, or whatever? But the players know all the key triggers, and then the more you think about it, the more information the players need to know, but they need to know. If you go, no, Andy, we're playing now with 3, and oh, 3, no, we're playing 4. And then you will be like, what are you talking about? You should tell me we're playing with 4, and now we're playing with 3. But if you know, if the wing back got the ball in the attacking third, and we only have 3 on the back, I want you just to hold the position and allow us to have more numbers on the defending third. And I say, okay, if not, if we are deeper, I want you to put pressure and force him wide. Okay, so you kind of a few key triggers to allow you to make a decision when to do it. So if we change to 4-3-3, like you say, and the coach say, oh, we play 4-3-3. And like, oh, okay, now we have 3 on the midfield, they have 4. So every time we are 2v1, what do we do? And it kind of, then, hey, Andy, why do we change?
Yeah. I mean, when I was at the Phoenix, we tried to do this, and okay, I was in a different philosophical space with the Phoenix youth team, even though we were playing in the National League. So you're playing against men's teams that are wanting to win, to go off to the Oceania champs and things like that, to get to the World Club champs, which is worth $500,000 and all those sorts of things. So you're playing against, you're playing some good competition. But I was playing with 15, 16-year-old kids in that league. So my hat wasn't, I need to win this game, so I'm going to play my best team and I'm going to tell you all the answers. My hat was, how can I help these players learn the real game? And so often it was, we had some formations and we had to have a bit of an alignment with the first team because at the time, Ernie Merrick was the head coach. He would throw down players to the reserve team that had to fit in, and there'd be a relationship. But Ernie would say to me, look, you don't have to do what I do because, I know what it's like to be down there and, trying to teach kids the game. He said, but if I need something, say, I don't know, Vince Lear's coming down or Sigmund or whoever's coming down, if I want them to do something, I'll let you know. If I don't, and they just come into yours, use them however you want. So I didn't have any real strict parameters about what formation or strategy I could play. So over the 3 years that I was involved, what we wanted to do was to help teach the kids the game so that they could move into any area of the world and play any style of football or any shape, any formation. So we worked a lot around principles of play rather than, right, we're going to play the 4-3-3 system. So things like the attacking principles, penetration, support, mobility, creativity, and dispersal, so creating space. So they understood when we had possession, wherever they were on the field, they had to create as much space as possible. And then conversely, once we lost it, you're applying pressure, you're getting compact, you're providing some cover. And if, for instance, we had 3 at the back, they understood if there was only 1 striker in the opposition team, or to be honest, we didn't need 3 at the back, we only needed 2, so one of them could step into midfield. And I would leave them to make those decisions. And hopefully that's helped players like Libby and Sarpreet and Joe Bell and all these other kids sort of move into different environments where they can actually make their own decisions about what's going on at that time. They don't have to wait for the coach to tell me to move position. There was one game in particular I remember we were playing in our winter season here, and Leeuwin, who was our captain at the time, was a centre back. We were playing 3 at the back, and I think it was like a 3-4-1-2 was the formation. And I can't remember who we were playing against, but there was a break in the play in the first half, and they were playing a 4-3-3 system, but pretty much a 4-5-1. They were very deep defensive. And he said, look, we've got 3 at the back. He said, I'm sitting here doing nothing because there's 3 of us. There's only 1 striker. He said, can we change formation? And I went, do what you think is right. And he went out onto the field, changed the formation, and we let them, and we won the game in the end because they were just a better team as well. But the formation helped, and we analysed it the following week, and I was trying to give the players that not the empowerment as such, but just have that responsibility to make your own decisions, and we'll review it. Now, could I do that with, say, Team Wellington in the National League? I don't know. There's probably a bit more riding on it. But I think a lot of the players nowadays, from our generation, have changed, where my coach would say to me, you're going to play left midfield today, and I want you to do X, Y, and Z. And I went, yep, that's all I did. I never questioned it. I never, answered back. I just did what, because otherwise, if I answered him back, he'd get off the pitch, you're sub. And but now kids are much more into the why should I do that? Why do I have to keep running here? And why do I have to? And I think if you can get that empowerment into them, systems and stuff almost fade away. It's the principles of the game. So if that team is going to drop off and play a very defensive block, what are the principles that we need to know? Doesn't matter what formation you play, what principles. So we need movement, we need penetration, we need some creativity. So right, who's going to provide that and how and where and solving those problems. So we try to stay away from sort of set formations and teach them the principles of the game rather than, and also teaching them the principles of the game in different scenarios. So if we wanted to play against a team that was very good on the ball, like an Auckland City, we would play a defensive strategy. So our principles of pressure, delay, cover, balance, they're all the same, but they're just deeper. So we didn't high press. We didn't go and step onto them and do that. We just sat off. But it was all very much a discussion between the two of us. I kind of would lead it and lead the team into sort of where I felt they should go. But then it was largely up to them on the pitch to make those decisions about what could happen and what should happen. So I think, the formations can be a little bit of a red herring. And I think players, this generation in particular, really want to have a bit of an input. And I think it helps them have that because it helps bring that accountability. And it stops, as we were talking about before, that blame culture. I told you to play 4-3-3. Well, yeah, but it's not working.
Yeah. So kind of relate to this. I was talking to Valerio and other coaches, and 2 things that they say you are really good at is one of those things is about that giving player tasks and giving almost like, in a way, like you were talking before, not being like, I want you to do this, but it kind of be quick, precise, but at the same time, give them a little freedom to make their own decision. What do you think is the secret? Because sometimes the coach come in and give a player task or team task or whatever, and they're like, I want you to do this, and then it's like, what do you say? What do you want to do?
Yeah, well, I think ultimately when you're playing the game, and most people that have played the game know there's only so many things you can keep in your head at one time, and especially with a dynamic game like football, which is changing every second. The last thing I wanted to do was to fill players' heads with information, because if I'm and I think this, that when you look around the fields and weekends and stuff, and you hear coaches screaming and barking, and I just think, well, that means you haven't coached during the week, because if you're having to tell them, you've not coached it during the week, and half the time they can't even hear you, and they're not even listening to you if they can hear you. So the players have to make their decisions on the weekend, And I think that came through. So I spoke earlier about the coaching changing philosophy here in New Zealand in 2008-ish to player-centered. That I changed quite dramatically from being, I would be, a very technical coach, so I could teach technique and how to strike a ball and chip a ball and curl a ball and be very explicit with that knowledge. And I'm now almost the opposite. I withhold all of that knowledge. I'll try and draw it out with some questions, and getting the players to try and be aware, make themselves aware of what's going on. So I think, when you look at players like Sarpreet and Joe Bell in particular, what makes them probably better than their peers at the moment is their level of awareness. So through their knowledge of what's around them, they're scanning all the time and taking, I call it snapshots. They know what's going on. So I don't need to tell them, oh, you can pass to him, or you can pass to him, or you can pass to him. All I'll say to them is, I just want you to be in control of the play, or I want you to link the play from back to front. That's it. How you do it, where you do it, when you do it is up to you. And I allow them, or that allows them then, to make their own decisions and find their own spaces and find their own, sort of patterns. And I think that's probably the best way to go with youth coaches or youth players. And then when they come to me afterwards, so if we videoed a game, they might watch it back and ask for some feedback or whatever. Then I can have a one-to-one chat with them about, well, this is why I think this is a better pass, or that's a better pass, or you can position yourself here. But I think that coaching change had a huge influence in my coaching, because it made me much more. My kids hate it, because here, if I'm helping them with homework, because of my knowledge of coaching and questioning, they know they're not going to get the answer from me. So, Dad, what's 4 + 4? I won't tell them the answer. I'll go, right, well, what about 4 and this? And Sam sometimes will go 8, just get it done. So I think, with withholding has really helped withholding that information. But I think that's probably one of the things I've been really pleased with when looking back at my career. I really enjoy now withholding information and seeing if the players can work it out. Probably frustrates the hell out of them sometimes, but.
Yeah, but at the same time, when you give out all the information, then the player need to use it because it was your information or not. Then I made the wrong decision. Oh, but you, and they're like, well, but because you told me or it doesn't mean the player will be able to do it. Because like you say, you allow them to express themselves, to make mistakes, to make the right decision. We watch at the clips, come improve this, well done on here, well done here, keep developing that one. And okay, that's good. So they
one of the biggest questions we used to ask them, which I still use, and I think is a great question, and I can't remember where I stole it from. I stole it from somebody, I'm sure I did. And the question is, what do you notice? And I've got a poster from 2011 at the World Cup, and we were saying to the players then, you have to be aware of what's going on, because 1, you can't hear us shouting information from the pit side of the pitch. 2, you can't even hear each other. And you're standing, if the 2 centre backs are standing 20 yards away, they couldn't hear each other. So you're left on your own with this noise all around you. So you have to be aware. So asking them the question of what do you notice actually force them into, okay, I notice that X is happening or B is happening, or he's free or he's not, or they're playing really high or not. So they have to become much more aware of what's going on around them. And I think once a player has that awareness, then that allows them to make better decisions, because they've got more information that they can now, okay, I don't need that, he's not available, right, there's the best option. And it happens obviously in a microsecond, but unless a player is aware, I don't think they can make good decisions.
Yeah, no, good point. And the other one of your thing is about that management of the people, management of players. What do you think is the key there to be successful managing other people?
Yeah, I think similar actually to the coaching thing around that being player-centered. If you change player to person, and when we went through some of this education, we struggled with what player-centered means. Does it mean just, you know, giving all the responsibility over to the player? You just decide. But in my own interpretation of it, it's giving the person or player what they need at that time. Now, sometimes if I was to set some tasks for players or questions and they didn't know, they go out and try it and they come back and struggle, and then I might help them get closer to the answer. And with people as well, the same sorts of thing. I use the phrase here in particular. I used to take the kids to school, and I'd see some mums walking into school, and the kid is in front on a scooter, like scootering into school, and the mum's got a bag or two children. She's carrying, you know, different things for all the kids, and she's struggling into school with the kids. And you go, you're not helping. Even though you're actually, at that time, you're helping that child carry some extra stuff, you're not actually helping in the long run, because he's going to rely on you to take everything and do everything for them. So I always say to my wife here, you're not helping by helping sometimes. So I remember we had one of your colleagues that we had at Capital Football, Stu Pine, had a problem. I can't remember the exact example of what was wrong, but he said, Andy, what would you do here? Because I'm struggling with this, that, and the other. And I said, what would you do if I wasn't here? And then I just sat back in the chair, and you could see him going, what do you mean? And I went, well, if I wasn't here, if I was on holiday and you had to get this done, what would you do? And he went, oh, I'd probably do this. And I went, well, do that then. And because most of the time you'll probably know the answer or the rough answer, or, you know, you'll get a gut feel for it. And I think that really helps with, you know, the ownership of your own development as a person, and your own decision making and experience. Because if I'd have said, oh, do this, Stu, because it's better, he'd have gone, okay, I'll do that, and not really understood, oh, okay, well, what, even if it went wrong, he might have blamed me. But if it was his decision and it went wrong, he might go, oh, well, why did that go wrong? And then I might be able to say, well, did you do X, Y, and Z, or did you help this, or did you contact that? And so there's a learning process that goes all through it. And I read, this is going back only about 5 years, I think, 5 or 6 years. I never did any education at school, so I left school with no real qualifications because I went straight into football. And when I was in the States coaching in the 90s, a lot of the guys I was coaching with were university students. And it was at that time I thought I probably should have paid more attention at school, and maybe got some qualifications and things like that, because, you know, going into coaching, you needed it. And so I got my coaching qualifications, but I never got anything else. So I started to read. And I started to read all sorts of things, from biographies to, you know, learning methodologies and all that sort of stuff. And a few years back, I came across a theory called self-determination theory. And it's well known, it's well written about. And it's about autonomy, relatedness, and competence. So the autonomy bit is, do you as an individual have some autonomy about what you do and how you do it and where you do it and what you do in your life? Because this theory basically says that if you have all these three things, you'll lead a fulfilling and happy life. And before I'd even read the paper, I was kind of, you know, I believed in that I think, you know, rather than people just turning up to work and doing a 9-to-5 day job, they actually want to have some control over how they're doing it and what they should bring to that role. And then they want to get better at that role, which is where the competence comes in. And so how can I help them get better and give them some development doing it? And then the relatedness was, well, how does this job or how does this task relate to my job or what I want to do in life, and, you know, be coaching and whatever. So I kind of look at that as a theory, and it fits really well with, you know, what I believe. And it also fits really well with some of my coaching beliefs and my methodologies of coaching, and, you know, giving the ownership to the players about, okay, should we play another example with the Phoenix boys? We got a keeper sent off in the first half, and this was our first year, and so we played in two competitions, a winter competition and a summer competition. And the winter competition was promotion and relegation, and we were in the Capital Premier, which was the sort of Division 1, if you like. We wanted to get up into the Premiership, so we had to get promoted this year. So winning was a very big focus for that winter season, and we were neck and neck all the way through the season with another club, and so losing points was really bad. Like we couldn't afford to lose many points, and we're playing against Miramar, and we were 2-1 down at half time, and we've just had our keeper sent off, and he conceded a penalty, and they've scored. And I said to the players, right, you've got a decision to make with two choices. You either defend and you change your shape to a defensive formation to stop any more goals going in, which is usually a 4-4-1, or you attack and you go after the win and you try and win it. And at the time we were playing a diamond, so a 4-diamond 2. So I said, what we'll do, we can reshape to a 4-3-2. So we keep the basic shape of a diamond, we just lose our number 10. So all it means is somebody, don't care who it is, has to fill that role at some point. And so I left them, I walked out of the changing room, Valerio was with me, walked out of the changing room, let the players discuss it for 2 or 3 minutes, went back into the changing room, and I said to Joe Bell, who was captain on the day, right, what are we doing, Joe? And he went, we're going to go for it. I went, brilliant. How are you going to do it? Well, and he took me through, and then there was a bit of a discussion with other players. He's going to do this and he's going to do that. Right, off we go. We went out and won 3-2. Now, I don't think it has anything to do with their abilities and things like that, but just from us giving them that responsibility gave them a whole different level of autonomy. They got competence out of doing it and belief out of doing it, and obviously related to what they were doing. So that self-determination theory was coming through loud and clear, and it really helped confirm my sort of thoughts and feelings about that type of philosophy, if you like, because you see it in action and see it working. And I've tried to do that with a lot of my staff around the years as well, and I mean hopefully I've got better at it. Even though I don't manage staff that much anymore, when you go on coaching courses and stuff, you're trying to, with other tutors, that may not be as experienced, I try and do the same thing. And I think with, if you're a head coach and you've got an assistant coach, do the same. Do the same with your assistant coach. Try and give them some responsibility and license. And what do you think? Because you shouldn't be the one that's making all of the decisions. It definitely should be a team effort, sitting around and discussing things, and then coming up. And obviously, as a leader, as a head coach, at the end of the day, you do have to make the decision. But I think you've got to include everybody else, because otherwise they're just robots. You might as well get a robot in to do that job.
Yeah, and also I guess the importance of that, we also developing people, isn't it? So assistant coach players, you're developing players, and or you're assistant coach, and if your assistant coach is a robot, let's say you're sick or you get sent off, whatever, who's going to coach them next weekend? The robot? Yeah. Not going to make any decision. We'll be like, oh yeah, can you call me Juan? And what should I do now? But if I think it's, and I was talking last week to Jacob, him coaching the Olympics, the Olive Whites and all stuff, and he always enforced when he was coaching, he did have an awesome team around him, and the importance of having a second one, a person that he can trust, to lead as well. And even sometimes I remember you saying that things about good cop, bad cop, and also could be that you go, I go in, or you go, and that feeling, or you do the talk, or I do it. And it's good to have that person as well, because sometimes it's good just to be a refreshment or whatever, but if they are ready, because you give them ownership, they're going to be ready. But if you take over and do everything, they're not going to be ready. You do it now.
Yeah, it's the same all over. Klopp is the same. I think he recognises what he's good at and what he's not good at, and then surrounds himself with people that are good at those things. And I think that's crucial. I've seen, unfortunately, too many sort of head coaches take a role, and they just surround themselves with people that are never a challenge to them. They're never going to question, why would you do that? Why are you doing this? And why are you doing that? They're just going to sort of, yes, boss. Yeah, that's the way to go, boss. And they just blindly follow. and I don't think that's healthy for an organisation, and it certainly doesn't help people grow. And I think you need to have an environment where not every decision is questioned, but there's certainly some justification and some trust between the group about, okay, we're going to, if I came into the dressing room and you're my assistant coach and we've been playing 4-4-2 for years and years and years. And then I go, right, tonight, Juanie, we're playing 4-3-3. And you go, yep, that's great. I'd be really worried because, no, surely you'd be saying, sorry, hang on, can we discuss, why are we doing this and what? So you should, be able to drill down and you should be able to have that relationship with your staff, which is, some people dislike it that, a coach goes to a club and he takes all his staff with him and then he goes to this club and then all the staff there. But I can understand it because they understand how he works and he understands how they work and they'll complement each other quite well. I think it's probably a sensible thing, even though other people, potentially lose their jobs and things like that. I mean, unfortunately, we're suffering that in New Zealand at the moment, but it happens all over the world in the game. But I can understand it because you do need people around you that know how you work and you know how they work. So it builds that trust. And the players, that certainly comes through to the players as well. Yeah.
So Andy, I could be talking to you all day, all night. We were talking last week already, that's 3 hours. But to finish up, so for people, the players that want to be professional or coaches that want to work full-time in football, what will be your advice?
Well, I think for the players is to just, you've got to get out and enjoy playing. You have to love it. And I think the more, there are studies done on this in Europe in particular, the more time you can spend playing with your buddies in the streets, at school, wherever it is, in the parks, playing social pickup football, the better it will be for you. And obviously, nowadays, I think child sport, and anywhere from sort of under 16s down, it's got so professional, academies and structure, and I think we've lost some of that free play nature to development, and I think it's crucial. So I think my advice to any young player out there is to play as much as you possibly can with your mates, and to coaches, it's to really look at that as a profession and a craft, because it does take time. I mean, if I think back to my first coaching session, July the 10th, 1995, I was awful. And I'm not saying I'm any good now, but it's certainly a craft, and you do need to invest a time into, knowing about yourself, knowing about who you've got at the time, your players, so if you're coaching 9-year-olds, what do they actually need? How do they learn best? And then, what are you trying to do with your career, and actually map out a bit of okay, I'd love to be doing this in 5 years' time, and study and get your badges, get some further education around the psychology of the sport and the psychology of learning. And yeah, it's a big world out there for how to become a better coach. But yeah, certainly starts with yourself. Yeah, exactly. Andy, thank you again for your time. Much appreciated. I'm very sure all the coaches will enjoy our chat. Discussion, knowledge, experience, a little of everything. So thanks, Wally. Thank you for the invite. It's been great. I've enjoyed it. Take care, my friend, and catch up soon. Thanks, Wally. Ciao, ciao. Ciao, amigo. Thanks, buddy.